Looking back, thinking about the challenges that the BVCA and our members have faced, I would perhaps point to macro events that have affected us. So if I go back a long time, I could think of the recession of the early 90s when the face of the UK economy really changed from old style manufacturing, and we had to go through that transition. And then of course you come forward to the great financial crisis in 07-08, and latterly the challenges that recent years and in particular COVID have brought us.
One of the biggest challenges when I was BVCA chair was really we got a new Labour government in, and we had to persuade that new Labour government that private equity, the venture capital, was a force for good. That came on the back of actually quite a difficult economic time in 97-98. It was a real charm offensive, which the industry did a wonderful job on, to actually persuade Tony Blair and Gordon Brown that we were a force for good.
The really important thing at that time was that we had this terrible brain drain from the UK, where able scientists, having been trained in this country, would all go over to America. We were using the Venture Capital Lunch Club to really put pressure on the government to start offering incentives for exploiting our science in this country.
There were several challenges. First of all, we were trying to attract the big buyout members, but they didn't think they needed to belong because they were very happy being private. And then what happened is there were a couple of their big buyouts sort of got themselves in trouble publicly, and there was a government backlash on how private equity was treating some of the companies that they were invested in. And so BVCA led the charge by asking David Walker to write the Walker Guidelines. And suddenly it became important that all the big buyout members joined so that they could collectively answer the question of how they added value to the companies and to the economy, as opposed to, hollowed them out, which I was always very supportive of.
Just on the cusp of the financial crisis, global financial crisis, 2007-2008. Private equity was an unknown but a coming force, and we were under, should we say, attack by the trade unions, the government, the media. No one really liked us very much. I did something like 40 media interviews, which was probably a record then, and probably still is a record now, in terms of the number of interviews as a chairman you have to do as opposed to the chief executive.
I was the vice chair just as COVID hit. So as biggest challenges go, that was pretty much it. All of our founders and our portfolio companies and all of their employees suddenly working from home. It was a very, very difficult time, so it needed really fast action. And then when we came into the chair's year, there was a lot of work to be done. We had a huge engagement in government in terms of really understanding all of the various aspects of our sector. So understanding the complexities of venture capital, mid-market, and all the way through to private equity.
The significant opportunities when I was chair were firstly the opportunity to, post-GFC, to retell the private equity and venture capital story, which we needed to do. And there was an opportunity for us to significantly increase the membership base, which we did by 20% or so in 2010 as a result of those efforts.
My opportunity as chair is really to put impact investing on the map with the BVCA, with the industry. So I made it very much the focus of my year as chair. It was in 2014-15 that we created the first impact advisory committee for the BVCA, which still endures to this day.
The opportunities were to raise the profile of the industry, and in particular with policymakers, help them begin to understand how important our industry is for growth economically, but also job creation and sustainable job creation.
The significant opportunities during my time were to basically bring private equity into light, bring private equity from this mysterious dark force into a place where people understood what we do and the good we do and the fact we are a force for good. And that was the beginning of a very long journey. So things like the Walker Report, the private equity reporting guidelines, that came out of that period. And I think in a sense it was a good thing because the UK led the way.